introduction, a little summary of what we're speaking about. So we're learning the Sefer Ner Mitzvah v'Torah which a mitzvah is a candle and the Torah is light. So the mitzvah is like a vessel, but however, we study Torah in order to bring down the light. And there's two types of study of Torah. There's the surface study, which the goal of surface study is to become fluent in the words of the Torah and with repetition in our mouth, even before we fully understand. And there's deep study, and the goal of deep study is to be able to reach insight. And actually, both of them work together. When a person does certain amount of surface study, especially when they learn certain things off by heart, like Mishnayos, or they learn Tanya off by heart, the words, the actual Hebrew words of it. So it organizes the brain in a certain way. And then the brain is a vessel to bring down insight. So they actually work together. And we spoke about how we're learning it's called Shar HaYichud, which is the gate of oneness. And there's a mitzvah in the Torah of Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And the goal of what we're learning is to fulfill this mitzvah on a deep level. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya chapter 33 writes that this is such a special mitzvah because it brings to all the other mitzvahs. It brings to happiness when performed deeply, and it brings to all the other mitzvahs. So it's worth for us to invest the time. And we spoke about how it's all a three-legged stool. Surface learning is one leg of the three-legged stool. It's connected with in the first paragraph of the Shema, it says, V'shinantam levanecha, you should teach them to your sons, which is about repeating the text over and over. V'shinantam is repetition in order to become fluent in the text. And that's the first level of learning. Then is limatem eisam in the second chapter of the second paragraph of the Shema, we have, you should teach them to your sons. And this refers also to deep learning, to getting insight. And then the third leg of the stool is taking action. And we spoke last week how there's two methods. You could either go through the entire process of surface learning and deep learning and prayer and then getting insight and then taking action, that is the method of the maskil. It's a valid way. It's called the intellectual, the Hasidic intellectual. It's a valid way of doing this performing this task and fulfilling this mitzvah. However, there's another way. It's called the oved, the person who's a servant. And what they do is before they even start the process, maybe they start with some surface learning, but immediately they go to tvuna, which is taking action. They immediately take some sort of action before they go through the whole process of surface to really go into deep learning and to get to insight and then to do application. They try to do some application. And let's look to understand this a little better. We're going to use a metaphor of Krav Maga, which is the Israeli self-defense. If a person studies martial arts, it's in the belt system. Sometimes it's takes a few years before a person is proficient, before they can actually proficiently do sparring. They need so much repetition for a few years till they have enough technique that they can do sparring and actually implement what they're learning. So the Krav Maga, when it was developed in World War II and after World War II, realized that we have to be able to train people to be able to apply their self-defense techniques much faster than a few years. So what they developed is called stress tests, which means they teach a fundamental technique slowly. You practice it slowly, and they speed up a little bit. And at the end of the class, what they do is they raise the heartbeat. They make a person do push-ups, and they make and sit-ups and run back and forth, and then close their eyes, and then suddenly a person gets attacked, and they have to perform the technique under pressure when the heart rate is up. So this stress forces a person to break that barrier and to go into implementation straight away. That their first gut reaction will be the implementation of the strategy. So instead of going through the whole system of repetition, just like we do with Shinantam, is repetition, and then finally, after going through the whole process, it becomes integrated and it becomes part of a person's natural reactions and natural behaviors. They create this stress, which forces a person to implement, to be able to implement much faster. Now now I'll give you another metaphor of a business trainer. There's a business trainer, and one of the things that a person does in business, if they're in sales, they do cold calling, and usually there is a script to say. Well, you don't want to waste people's time, so you want to say the exact words that if they're interested, those words will tell them the exact information that they need to be to decide whether they want to purchase or not purchase. And when a person reads from a script, it's usually not natural. It doesn't there's like blockages. It doesn't naturally flow from the heart. So this trainer, what he does, he takes the person to a gym and he raises their heartbeat and he makes them to push those heavy things that are dragged across the floor. People are used to walking, so walking is a natural technique, so the person's not going to damage themselves by doing this. But they're going to get tired, and then they try to read the script and see if the blockages go down, if it really flows from the heart. And then eventually a person gets so tired that they have no more blockage anymore, and the script just flows from the heart. So that's a method where a person gets to application, tfuna, from understanding, and they make that jump to application. It's in both situations we see it has to do with getting a person tired, putting a person into a simulated stress situation, and then the natural ability to apply starts to shine. In Torah, in the method of Chabad, we find the idea of sweating for a mitzvah. Sweating for a mitzvah. For example, we just had Pesach, and for Pesach, it's important to clean the kitchen very well. And sometimes a lot of things need to be moved to be able to make a proper kosher kitchen for Pesach, and it takes a lot of work. So what would happen in Lubavitch is the Bachrim would work really hard, and that effort that they put into the mitzvah made them a vessel, helped them to be a vessel to be able to understand and implement their Hasidus, their deep learning. So we very much see this three-legged stool. Take action, take small action straight away. If you put effort into the action, if you have to sweat for the action, that's even better. It's important to do this surface study, and it's important to do deep study. Now when it comes to deep study, there's understanding. We have intellect. We have an understanding, and sometimes people understand that something is the right thing to do, but the part of our body which actually runs our emotions and triggers our emotions and actually runs our body is the subconscious mind. And sometimes there's an incongruence. We may understand that a certain thing is right, but we just don't feel like it. And especially when a person's in the morning and they're alert and awake, it's easier for the conscious mind to rule over the body and the subconscious mind. But when a person gets more and more tired, the conscious mind becomes more and more tired, and sometimes we find ourselves that we're following the program of the subconscious mind, which may not agree to what we believe in. And the question is, how do we get congruence? How do we get our subconscious mind to actually follow the conscious mind, even when the conscious mind is getting tired. So there are two methods. There's the surface method and there's the deep method. Now, the good thing about the surface method is that it's very easy to do, very easy to, you know, it works today. It will work today. Sometimes it'll take a little repetition, but it can work straight away. But when it comes to the deep method, it takes time. However, it's transformational. So there's a difference. Do you want to be effective, or do you want to be transformational and effective? Well, the answer is you can't really become transformational before you're actually effective. So everybody needs to use the surface method first, and the surface method is speaking to the heart. It's said, this is a method brought down in Tanya. Speak to your heart. So speak to your heart is like speaking to your subconscious mind, to your emotional mind. And so when you understand something's the right thing to do, you took upon yourself to do a certain undertaking, you speak to your heart. Be very clear, use clear words. You don't have to verbalize them, but you need to speak to your heart. For example, I know of a certain trainer, when he's a instructor in Israel of for security teams, and when he's loading and upload, he's a colonel, he's a colonel, and when he's changing from like dry fire to and loading up for live fire, he actually speaks to himself. He says to himself, he says his name, and he says, now I am loading up live fire. So it's with a conscious mind, he's giving instructions to his subconscious mind that now it's dangerous. It's different than what we were doing before. So he actually speaks to his heart in order that he shouldn't make a mistake. So this is a method which we can all use. Once we know something's correct, we have to simplify, give a clear instruction to our heart, and speak to our heart. Now, if our heart doesn't listen, that's because it doesn't trust its older brother. It's like a child, and the conscious mind is like the older brother, that has more maturity, and the subconscious mind is like the younger brother that's really brilliant. And the younger brother doesn't really trust the older brother, so he doesn't listen the first time. So what do? You repeat clear instructions that again and again. It's like they call it the broken method, record method. But if a person gives clear instructions and it comes from the heart as much as possible, like speak like with emotion to your own heart, then it's more likely that it will listen, and your feelings will be congruent to your conscious mind. However, ultimately, that's only just the beginning. This is only like surface motivation. It's very important, but we want transformation. We want to get to the next stage where we're not fighting. We don't have to be fighting all the time. When it becomes natural, when we've reached a level where there's transformation, we just want to go on to higher levels. We're not fighting about the small things forever. So the deeper method is, once we've mastered speaking to the heart, it's what happens is when a person reaches the insight after understanding, they've done so much effort they've done the surface learning, now they're doing the deep learning, and they've to the deep learning, they put their deep attention to that, and they come to the core concept. And then later along in prayer, and we're going to speak about this, in the prayer, the daily prayers, there is something in there that is a little summary of their greater studies. There's always the prayers of the words of the prayers are the same, but they're encoded in them. There are many deep concepts encoded on many different levels. But in the simple translation of the words, sometimes it's usually a one-liner. Encoded in that is a deep message. And when you study a Hasidic discourse, it's important to ask oneself, what is the trigger in the prayers? Where is this brought down in the prayers? Which is the one-liner? Sometimes there's more than one line, but which is the main one-liner that's going to bring it out? And when we pray and we focus again, on that word. If we're going to have an experience of divinity, that's going to happen for 1 split second when we say that one-liner. And that gives us the power to become that insight, that flash of insight. It's only a flash, is the only time we really experience through our own efforts the divine, like a ladder. We attain it through this certain method, and that allows us to create congruency, to do tuvuna, to reach application, and it's going to flow naturally. The body stops resisting. Now, it depends on how we study. There's a way of inspiring our subconscious mind, our body, that it sort of lets go, but it hasn't really transferred. It sort of says, I don't really understand, but I know you do, you know, older brother, like, you know, conscious mind, I know you're going the right path. I let you take over. But he didn't really transform. He just gave up, right? That's a good thing. It's a good stage. But that's not the ultimate. That's not the ultimate. We want the younger brother to really understand on his own, like the subconscious mind, to understand on its own why a certain behavior is really the correct behavior. And that's really when the resistance not only goes down, but the subconscious mind sees things differently. So it's not even a fight. You don't even have to overwhelm the subconscious mind with inspiration. It's going to happen automatically. And that's the deep learning. Deep learning has the ability to create that congruence. So you can have a person that understands everything. They're a big professor, but they don't have congruence with their subconscious mind, because they didn't go through the stage of deep learning insight, then application. So let's say we're speaking about in this whole chapter about tavuna, which is different than bina, different than comprehension, because it's application. And we spoke last week that there's understanding something and then understanding it so well that the physical wiring of the brain matches the concept. And this usually happens when you practice something. This happens especially if you're young, and the brain is creating new connections all the time very easily. But even if a person is older, after the 12, 13, and after 20, if a person puts a lot of effort into something repeatedly for a time, the actual neurology, the physical vessel of the brain, is going to create connections in the brain, which will speeden up the calculation. In other words, the calculation the person needs to make to be able to implement something needs to be quite rapid. That's only when the actual wiring, the vessel of the brain, is wired up to match the information. For example, when it comes to a language, you don't want to be like thinking, what was that word again? It's not fast enough. A person has to repeat the language, and they have to actually force themselves to, as I call breaking the teeth, forcing oneself, that's the tfuna, to actually speak the language. And when a person forces themselves, this causes the growth of the nerves to make those connections, that that the information become more fluent. And the same, when a person stops practicing, so those connections weaken and a person slows down. And there's sort of things like you won't forget how to ride a bike, but you will, if you do tricks, you will forget the tricks. Like a person juggles, they won't forget how to juggle, but they will forget how to do the complicated tricks if they don't practice. So it's important to keep in practice, to keep attention to the information, and it's important to keep on improving. Because if a person's not going to a higher level, then they're not really practicing, and then the original connections that they made are not won't remain strong. So you can't be staying on the same place. You have to always be growing and doing something deeper and harder and taking on a new challenge in deep learning just to maintain what you've achieved so far. So the purpose of the surface learning is sort of to create an antenna in your brain that will bring down, will be like an airport, that the deeper learning, the deeper insight can land on this airport. But just because you know, like, of like chapters of Tanya off by heart, or Mishnayos, or the Psalms of Tehillim, that's just an airport. You have to use that airport to be able to bring down something new. It's just like an antenna, but you have to use that antenna to bring down new things, to get that refined understanding, not just the basic understanding. So surface learning is a great preparation. It's a beginning of studying. It's very important, but that won't really bring down that insight. The person needs to go to the next leg of the stool and do the deep learning, and to really be able to apply the deep learning to make it congruent in Tfuna, in application. A person really needs to work on the Tfuna even before, to work on the. That's why you need to take action even at the beginning, of the learning. Now, we had a little bit of a question at the end of the previous learning. We're going to look inside soon. Is that, one second, if you're saying that Tfuna is the emotion of comprehension, of Bina, if Tfuna is the emotion, and motion is like the idea of motion, the idea of movement. If so, why do we need Tfuna? In other words, Tfuna already exists. Emotions exist already in the comprehension. And the answer is, well, maybe they're not incorporated in the physical vessel of the brain. In other words, you may understand something is good to do or not good to do. However, it hasn't been incorporated in the physical vessel of the brain. The calculations are not fast enough to be able to make those the proper applications. So Tfuna itself, even though it starts to exist in comprehension, it's a thing for itself. The attainment of Tfuna, the attainment of application, is a thing for itself. The ability to make a decisive decision, and that the decision should actually be correct and actually work, requires more than comprehension, more than Bina. It requires that the information it requires a person to put so much attention and repetition on the information that it really becomes one with the person. And the best Tavuna is going to be after the insight, after the experience of the insight. So let's read inside. We're up to the word amnam, and we're going to, and amnam is usually is a word which is reconciling, making some reconciliation of an issue that was happening before. And that was the question, right? Like, why do we need a separate thing called Tfuna? If Tfuna is the emotions of comprehension, the emotions already existed in comprehension itself. No, he says no. And he says, amnam, however, kayachat Tfuna, the power of application, mispashet mimayach bina. It actually stems from the brain of Bina, from the left brain, which is the brain of comprehension. Tfuna is the ability to take the essential understanding, the essential comprehension, and to spread it to something below it. B'chol inyan nivdal hemenu, to be able to apply it in anything that's separate from it. Either to make an obligation in order to pronounce that somebody is guilty, or to pronounce somebody is innocent. Oleispalel belev. Or another ability is to actually make movement in the heart. Vechein, and so too, lavia b'machshava b'kama ifanim shonim. Also, tfuna allows us to think about it in many different ways. So it gives us, it opens up our mind to be able to think of something out of the box. Ach l'cha'ira. Now this is he says here's the question. However, l'cha'ira, it seemingly anureim, we see sheyesh bibina atzma bechinas amidus. We see in bina itself that there are emotions. Hanikra zayin tachtenim bibina. They are called the 7 lower levels of bina. In other words, the way creation works is that the building blocks of creation repeat themselves over and over again in different ways. So there are 10 building blocks in creation, and in Bina itself, there are the 3 intellectual, intellectual aspects. In other words, in Bina we have an aspect of insight, and we have an aspect of comprehension, and we have an aspect of focus. Those are the 3 intellectuals, and then we have 7 emotions. We have the fight or flight, right? Love is the idea of going towards something. Fear is the idea of moving away from something. Tiferes means beauty, which is the synthesis between the fear and love. In other words, to be effective, sometimes it's not good to go all the way towards something or all the way run away from something. Sometimes to be effective, we need a mixture of both. So Tiferes, beauty, is the aspect where Tiferes is the aspect where we synthesize both love and fear in order to make it effective. And these 3 emotions are really the emotions as we need them for ourselves. And then there's 3 emotions with regards to relating to the world around us. So we have netzach, which is the emotion of going for it, to being brave and going for it. It's a yes, it's a go. And hoid is an emotion which is the part where you hold back, like a businessman. You have to be able to differentiate between when is it time to go, netzach, and when it's time to hoid, to stop. And in fact, the emotion of hoid is it's about recognizing truth. And there's 3 things that could happen. You could recognize that somebody else is correct, and you say, hoid means you're right. And another time, hoid means you recognize that somebody did something good to you. So hoid means thank you very much. Toda, in Hebrew we say thank you. And another time you realize that hoid is that I'm right, and I got to stick up to what's correct. And that's why hoid is sometimes called majesty. So hoid is the ability, we find this by business people that have a lot of experience, that they can tell if something's real or not real. So sometimes they can recognize if a person has a lot of experience in a certain area, they say, oh, you're right. I see there's something valuable over here. They see an opportunity. Sometimes they realize, no, this is fake. This is not a real opportunity, and I'm right over here. And sometimes they realize that somebody did them a favor, and they give me, and I didn't really deserve this opportunity, and I have to be thankful for it. So hoid will do all these functions, whereas netzach will be the function. Okay, let's go for it. Let's win. Let's expand. So netzach is the emotion of expansion. So it's basically, we're taking the first three emotions, the love, fear, and the synthesis in a beautiful way. We're taking them and now making impact on the outside world, either by we're expanding, or whether we're saying thank you, or whether we're sticking up to what's right. That's not tzachai. Now the sixth emotion, we said there's seven. The sixth emotion is yesod, which is in Hebrew means a foundation, because on a person's personality, there's all these different aspects. How do we synthesize all these various emotions and make it one consistent personality? So that's why it's a base. It's a base for all the other emotions. And that base is the space where we have space for our own emotions. And if we, to have proper empathy and proper connection to another person, that's the space where we have space to be able to recognize other person's emotions. So if you have a good base, you have enough time to analyze your own emotions, what you feel about a certain situation, but you're also able to recognize by looking at somebody's face, right? When you cover the face, it's very hard to be able to recognize a person's emotions. But we have these, these researchers said we have these mirror neurons, which allow us to mirror another person's facial expressions in our mind, and to recreate that. By mirroring the facial expression, we're able to recreate their facial expression inside ourselves, and therefore reproduce the emotion. And then we know what emotion they're feeling, and now we can be empathetic to their emotion, and we can make some sort of connection. So that's why yesod is the emotion of connection, of relationships, of connecting to people. So now we almost have a full personality. Now the last one, the seventh one, is expression and communication. So now it's the emotion of expression, of communication, of leadership. So not only we're making an impact on the outside world, because we can also communicate. We can also articulate to other people what we understand and what we feel in a way that they can understand. And Malchus, it's spelled, Melech is king. Well, a king is spelled Mem, Lamed, and Chaf. Mem represents Moyach, the brain. Lamed represents Lev, which is like love, which is the heart. And Chaf represents Koved, which is the liver. And the liver is where the food gets synthesized with the blood. So that's like our most physical tactile aspect of our body, and it's our movement. So when is a person a king? Is when they function in that order, that the brain speaks to the lev, to the heart, which then speaks to the body, and that's melech. But if we do the opposite, if we allow the body reactions, the triggers of the body, then to tell our heart what we should like, and then that tells our brain what we should get, so then it spells the opposite, which is kalem, which leads to destruction. So a person, in order to be a king over themselves, they need to have that order, that the mind tells the heart, tells the intuition how things should be running. It's not that the intuition tells the heart, and then the mind is not. Then the mind is a servant to the heart, which is a servant to a person's gut reactions. That leads to destruction. So for the seventh emotion, that now we have a complete personality with all these abilities. So in Bina, in comprehension itself, in the left brain, we have we have all 10, and we have the emotional aspects, which are 7. Now because we're doing the spheres, it's worthwhile to speak about compound emotions. There's 49 compound emotions. And that is, we could have a double emotion. In other words, when we're doing, let's say, Netzach Shebegvura. So the first one, the first emotion is our presenting emotion. That's the behavior. That's like the vessel. And the second emotion is our intent. So let's say that our intent is Gvura, and Gvura in the service of Hashem is the idea to be focused, and Netzach is the idea of going for it, of winning and expanding. So how can we be expansive in order to be more focused? So a person could say that I'm going to control my surroundings in order to make it more conducive, to make it to be more focused. The things that distract me, I'm going to put them at a further distance away from me. So it's going to be inconvenient for me to become unfocused. So that would be practicing the emotion of Netzach Shebegvura with the intent of revealing the Gvura, the idea of strength, the idea of focus. So there's if there's 7 emotions and each one has 7, that would be 49. So these are the 49 days that we count the Omer between Pesach and Shavuos this year will be 3,333 years since the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. So Bina has all 10 and especially has the 7 emotions, v'nikra midas shebaseichel, and they are called the emotions inside the intellect. Hamata kalapei zechus. And what do these emotions do? They move the intellect towards finding merit in a certain situation or a certain person, or its intellect that now is moving towards finding somebody guilty or finding fault. Kiyudua, like it's known. So these emotions exist in intellect itself. Hainu, this is now the way these emotions they are in comprehension, that's the way they are in the world of intellect, be'etzem hasaga, in the understanding itself. Edayin, they're still there. Be'helem, they're really existing on a subconscious level at that point. But to bring those emotions into revelation, into application, into something separate. In other words, to give direction in a certain case, to give the appropriate direction in a certain case. That's laharis, to give direction. Al pi aseichel, according to the intellect, the asbara and the reasoning, hasvara hazos, this reasoning, lahates es hamishpat shel zeh ha'inyan, to turn the judgment of this concept lechesed v'gvura, either to kindness or to strictness. Sheba in it, because in each davka, in each scenario, it's not 0 100. It's not black and white. Sometimes there's some aspects which it's like could be 60, 40, 30, 70. There are aspects, even if the conclusion is that we need to be strict, nevertheless, there are aspects that show innocence. For example, before passing a judgment on a person, let's say somebody did something bad, but if they had difficult time in their life, difficult education that made it difficult to be able to choose the right thing, that's going to be something that a judge needs to take in account. So a person may be guilty of actual doing something wrong, but they may have reasons why we need to take in account that there's certain elements of innocence in this case. Specifically, a person of tvuna, of application, he knows how to bring the midas out of bina. Let's say a person of tvuna will have experience that for this certain case, we have previous experience that if we put this person in a certain scenario, they will thrive. So they have now the ability to apply because they have a practical understanding of what's going to be the outcome of the situation. So that's one of the things a person that's an ish tvuna ask themselves, what's going to happen in the end? What's this going to look like in the end? And that helps in tvuna. Vish tvunis hanukayach hakel bechi toiv letzamasaga. Ish tvuna is the ability to soak up koila, to soak up extremely well the core understanding, because his brain is shaped for it already. He put in so much effort. Therefore, he's able to spread the understanding to do, and to direct a number of separate things, legamri, that are totally separate from the actual intellect. And he's also able to reveal the depth of bina. Depth of bina is something that is very hard to give, to articulate, to give to other people, because they have to go through the experience themselves. They have to go through the experience of learning with effort. That it's a very challenging thing to do that to a person, because in the end they're going to find much enjoyment. But at the beginning, it's difficult, it takes effort. Now, what this ish tvuna is he has this ability to articulate something very difficult to give over to other people. It's going to make it much faster for them to get the core concept if he gives it to them. So there needs to be a person who's doing this needs to be extremely emotionally intelligent. On the one hand, he needs to challenge the student. On the other hand, it could save him a lot of time by giving a little bit of a hint onto what the actual on what the actual core concept is, or what the actual depth is, so they really get the core concept. Kanavadal. Now we're going into the bracket. We're always giving you definitions, because by giving you definitions of words, then you can open up other sfarim and be able to recognize what those code words means. So this is called Abba ve'ema tatayim, the father and mother, the lower mother and father. And a person who hasn't been trained, they will think, oh, this is so cryptic. But really it's not, because it's just a metaphor. It's very down-to-earth metaphor about the mother and father, tatayim. What's going to be a tatayim? It's going to be like sometimes you have like an absent father. So let's think of that. The grandfather, like he's not home, he's not around all the time. So Abba ve'ema tatayim would be the lower mother and father, which means like sometimes for some people be like the bigger sister that's always around, helping and being really involved with their younger siblings. Think of that metaphor. In other words, they are able to understand the world of the child. So that's what we mean. Abba ve'ema tatayim, lower mother and father. It means a mother and father, but they're really, really involved and they really understand. They remember what it is to be a child themselves. So that is what are another word for that is Yisrael Saba. Actually, okay. So let's explain. It's actually called Yisrael Saba v'tvuna. The lower father, which is we know is Chachma, which is insight, is actually called Yisrael Saba, Yisrael the grandfather. Why would we call him grandfather? Isn't grandfather lower removed? So I'm going to explain this metaphor a little differently. Is sometimes the father is busy at work, and the grandfather is a little more calm, doesn't have the yoke of work on his shoulders, and he's able to give his full attention in a pleasant way to the child. So sometimes the grandfather can have a greater effect than the father. So that's called Yisrael Saba. Yisrael, the grandfather, is actually the lower father, which is this insight, the motions of insight. V'tvuna, and tvuna is the emotions of the bina, of the brain of comprehension, of the left brain. So Yisrael Saba is the Yisrael Saba is the emotions of the right brain. We have it inside us. It's the emotions of the right brain. It's an insight which is very connected with action, with the life of a person's internal child. So Yisrael Saba is Midah Sheba Chachma. So Yisrael Saba, Yisrael the grandfather, is the emotions of insight. V'tvuna, and tvuna application is the Midas, the bina is the emotions of bina, of comprehension. And they come, and they get revealed. It's not like some hidden understanding. No, it's going to articulate. V'chinos malchus de tvuna. Now here's something really, really important when it comes to the sefer that we're learning, the book that we're learning, Shar Yichud, the Gate of Oneness. And we said before that it's based on a verse in Torah, the mitzvah of Shema Yisrael, Hear O Israel. It's interesting that we're mentioning Israel. We already know what Israel means. It means the insight of, it means the emotions of insight. Then the Lord is our God. The Lord is one, Echad. Now, Echad is one, and we're going to find out what the code meaning behind the Dalet, the Echad, the last letter, is. So ubechinas malchus de tvuna. So we're going to understand what this means in very soon. Malchus de tvuna. Malchus, we said, is the seventh emotion, which is expression, articulation. So malchus de tvuna. So the expression, the tvuna of tvuna, which is this ability to apply, expression of the ability to apply, waseichel haba b'machshava. This is the interface with intellect that is already becomes audible thought. Hanikra oises hamachshava, which is already called the letters of thought. Now, thought, we sometimes think in pictures, we think in audible words, we think in ideas. So that these are all letters of thought. Mashava Seichel, the letters of thought. See, thought really can't exist on its own without being clothed in some sort of letters of thought. Because intellect gets enclosed in these letters that our brain creates. Who creates it? It's Malchus de Tfuna. The expression of Tfuna creates audible thought. And this becomes the external vessels for deep thought. Deep thought needs some sort of vessels. Internal vessels, audible thought. Basically, it reveals the understanding of comprehension, atma, of comprehension of itself, the core intellect, vaspara, and the core explanation, and the expression of application, Nimshach Sherish Ha'osius. From there is drawn the source of letters Hamachshava of thought, Atzma itself, Shenikra Leah, which is called Leah. Leah is the first wife of Yaakov, of Yisrael, our grandfather. And what we have is that, let's go back a little bit, that the entire world, how is it that only God exists? And then one of the explanations for this is we're going to use the metaphor of a brain. And the brain is able to create worlds and create thought and to paint pictures and to make sounds and music all inside itself. And yet there's only one brain. Essentially, it doesn't add or take away from the brain. The brain can continually come up with a story. So if the metaphor is like we are inside God and God is thinking us up. And in order for us to be able to connect to the essence of God, we are gifted this process of understanding this whole system, so that we can, go through the system and to be able to recognize our Creator, recognize the original source of everything. And to make it easier for us to be able to understand the system, we have our certain special people throughout history that were an embodiment, or are an embodiment of this entire divine idea. In other words, they are like the vehicle of this entire divine mechanism. And if it would just be a mechanism, then it will be hard for us to relate to. But since it's a personality in history, so then when we study that personality, we can have a personal relationship with how this mechanism actually works. And then when we have a personal understanding and relationship on a human level with how this mechanism may work, we can relate to it because it's a real person we are studying. Then we can understand more about how this mechanism works, and then we can connect to the actual creator of this mechanism, which is behind it. And so Leah, it's like Yaakov is the emotion of insight. And what is Leah? Yisrael, specifically Yisrael. And what is Leah? Leah is audible thought. Leah is the embodiment of God's audible thought, creating the entire world. So once you have that, it will give you a tremendous respect for, who these they represent the entire creation. V'hu dalid rabasi de'echad. And this, so Leah is already audible thought. It's already the creation. The entire creation flows through Leah. And what is the interface between, the interface right before potential audible thought and actual audible thought? Potential audible thought is still before the creation, still God. And then there's audible thought. So the creation of that, the interface is the last letter of the of Hero Israel. The Lord is our God. The Lord is one. Dalet. Dalet is the interface. It's right before creation happens. Dalet, that Dalet at the end is represented, is the Malchus Datfuna. It's the expression of application, which is not yet creation. Right after that, it becomes Leah, which is audible thought. Creation happens. And why it's different, if you look into a Torah and you look into a mezuzah or tefillin, you'll see when Echad is written, you'll see the Dalet is large. That is a code. When the letters are written regular side, we're speaking about the letters the way they are on an emotional level. When we see sometimes small letters in the Torah, that's referring to the way these letters are as malchus, as leadership, expression. When we see a large letter, that means the way this letter is in its source, in the intellect. So that's Dalid Rabasi Echad, because we're going to the source, we're going to the intellect. The source of creation is Malchus the Tmuna, the expression is the expression of application. Vezeu shenikra Tvuna, and this is why the Tvuna, the spelling of Tvuna includes the words ben ubas, son and a daughter, because a son and a daughter, again, it's making it easier to relate to when you have different relationships. So when you have a son and you have to relate to a daughter, and it's a complex relationship, and there's a difference between them. If you bring up a son and a daughter, you'll realize that they are different. Kiyadua, like it's non liyes, higam betfuna yesh gimel dvarim. So Tvuna application creates ben ubas, and ben represents the idea of going towards something, and abas, it represents the more idea of fear, of staying away from the bad. Even in Tvuna, he says, yesh gimel dvarim. There are the three things of a river that we've been speaking about. There's a aimek, there's a depth of Tvuna, v'erech, and there's a length of Tvuna, v'reichev, and there is a width of Tvuna, depth, length, and width of a river. So what's the aimek, the depth of the bottom of the undercurrent, the bottom of the river? U'etzem kayach Tvuna is the essential power of application. How's this? Oh, very. Okay. Yeah, it's the etzem power of application, Hazois, Sheba Isa Asaga, in this intellect, the power of application. That's the depth of Tvuna. When you grasp it, there's an ability. I know what to do with this. With this ability of grasp, we can take the depth of the understanding of comprehension and make it articulated. Canal. We spoke before about the man of application is able to draw out the deep waters. And the length of Tvunahu Yerida Binyan Acher is the idea of bringing it down into something else. Hanivdal, which is separated, Laharis, by to give direction. So again, the omek, the depth of Tvuna, is the idea of articulating the depth. The Arachat Tvuna, the length of Tvuna, is the idea of giving direction into something else. Lasas Maisim Rabim Aliada, to do many things using this understanding. In other words, seeing the opportunity of what could be done with this. And the width of Tvuna is the idea of spreading the understanding, to make it wide in the thoughts, in many different ways, to really think outside of the box. Not just the way it is itself. That's the ability to think outside of the box. So let's say it again. The depth of Tvuna is the idea of articulating the depth of the comprehension. The length of Tvuna is the idea of giving direction, and the width of Tvuna is to think out of the box in different ways. Umasha Kalula Tvuna Ben Ubas. And this, that Tvuna, inside the lettering of Tvuna, we have the letters of Ben, son, Ubas, and daughter. Hainumasha Tvuna, it's hinting of the fact that Tvuna application, Davka, specifically application, Yuldu Hamidis, Bigili, from it will come revealed emotions. Muhus B'fnei and they get their life of its own. Emotions will get a life on their own. Ki Mebina atzma loy hayu toldeis hamidis, because from comprehension itself will never give birth to midas. comprehension itself won't give birth to midas. Like there's people like a doctor, we said this before, like a doctor can understand that it's wrong to smoke, but they may still smoke because their emotions, they're not congruent with his understanding, because the comprehension mind doesn't have the ability to create emotions. Like the higher mother, it's like the mother that doesn't really give birth to the son and the daughter, to the emotions, to the love and the fear, to the flight. You know, you have the going towards something and going away from something. Even though the higher mother, which is Bina, is called the mother of children. She's the higher mother. She's not. She doesn't actually give birth. However, the tfuna application nikra ematata is called the lower mother. So why is this a lower mother? Because she actually gives birth to the midas who bechinas ben ubas. That's the idea of a son and a daughter. Ava v'yira. What's a son? A son is more dominant. His love to go towards something is more dominant, and bas by a daughter is the idea of going away from something that's dangerous. Fear is more dominant, or at least each one of them has both, but one's dominant. And both of those emotions actually come together between in application, dafka specifically. Habina lamata. It is the ability to apply bina below, kanal, like we've mentioned. V'gam lezatam bechinas hameichim shebemidas. For this reason, the meichin shebemidas, the intellect in the emotions, nimshach mebechinas tefuna, which come from tefuna. Now, let's explain this. When the emotions are born and they get a life of their own, they still have an intellect. That's called meichin shebemidas, the intellect inside emotions. However, that emotion needs to be rapid, and therefore the program needs to be simple. In other words, if a person sees a tiger, you can't have, this thing that's orange that has those black lines, it could be dangerous, and therefore you can't be going through comprehension at that point in time. You need to be able to say, danger, jump up a tree. I don't know if that's going to be affected with danger, take cover. Danger, do something now. A person has to jump. It has to be fast. So therefore, the recognition of danger and the response needs to be rapid. And therefore, the program, the algorithm that a person has to be simple. So it's processed rapidly, quickly. So this is meichin shebemidas, the emotion. So that's what we call triggers. Triggers are basically simple algorithms that we have inside us to activate the emotion. Either we're going towards something or away from something, or we have more compound emotions and more complex emotions, but the emotion needs simple triggers. And so these simple triggers are actually, these simpler algorithms are actually created by the ability of application. So in application itself, when it's still in the intellect is going to be more nuanced, and the algorithm is going to be longer. But when now it needs to give birth to an emotion, it needs to be able to recreate a simple algorithm that works in a rapid way. And so we're going to stop right here, and we're going to continue with this concept next week. And then we're going to start applying it. So this is just how what we've been learning so far, is just how intellect and our brains work in any situation. But we're going to learn how, we're going to start learning next week how this ability works specifically in the study of the soul of the Torah, how it actually how understanding this process and how understanding how our mind works will help us with this mitzvah of aligning everything with the oneness of God.
Okay, thank you for hearing that. No, there's no questions for now. We're going to pause for this week. Thank you so much.
Have a good one.